Presentation as you do. Please let me know if it is, hold on. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. So my name is Mimi and I'm a civil engineer at an organisation called Sir Robert McAlpine. So firstly, I'll begin with my story into engineering. I like to title my story as The Importance of Taking Risks, and I'll dive further into that as we go through. So my life actually started in Nigeria, and I came to the UK when I was 11. And after living in Nigeria, I also lived in the Middle East and I lived in Germany, which was a really good experience. Really opened my eyes to like just everything in general, basically, and meeting so many people, learning different languages. I speak 5 fluently, so it's really helped me to understand the world that we know it now. So, my secondary school life started in the UK. So at GCSE, I took triple science, history, and business studies. Triple science because I enjoyed it, history because we were doing a module called History of Medicine, and business studies because my sister did it, and I thought, oh, if she did it, I probably should do it too. Then at A level, I did biology, chemistry, psychology, and religious studies because originally I wanted to be a doctor. So I said, okay, I'll do biology and chemistry. Psychology because it was something new, and religious studies because I got an A in it at GCSE. So as I was applying for university, I applied to medical school. Unfortunately, as we can see from the largest picture of my screen here, I didn't do well, unfortunately. So I missed the offer for medicine and I decided I would study pharmacy instead. So I went to university studying pharmacy. 6 months in, I decided that this wasn't the course for me and I didn't enjoy it at all. So I thought to myself, if I didn't enjoy pharmacy, how am I going to enjoy medicine if they're kind of the same thing? So I decided I was going to drop out of university. I saw a friend as I was about to drop out and he said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, just handing in my coursework because I was completely embarrassed that I was dropping out of university. And then he said, okay, so what are you doing after? And I said, oh, well, my lecture's in 3 hours, so not really anything. And he said, why don't you come with me to my lecture? So I said, okay, sure. So I followed him, and long story short, he studied civil engineering. And I fell in love with bridge design and the technicalities surrounding designing bridges. Long story short, 15 minutes later, I changed university and degree and started studying civil engineering in 2014. So when I went to university, as we saw, my A-levels aren't the typical A-levels you would have while studying engineering. So I didn't do maths and physics. If I'm being really honest, I'm quite scared of large numbers, and maths wasn't my favorite and neither was physics at school, really. However, when I went to university, they were really, really good at supporting those students who didn't have the maths and physics at A-level. So I didn't feel like I was falling behind because I was really, really supported by my university and my course mates, actually. Whilst at university, I decided to take a placement year to understand the actual practicality of civil engineering and therefore marry the two together, so the theoretical knowledge and the practical knowledge. After university, I decided to take a graduate scheme when I was in a job where I was designing roads and bridges, but I'll go further into that as my story goes forward. So going back to my placement year, I worked on some amazing projects in central London, one of them being Amazon's headquarters in Shoreditch. So hold on, my camera's away. So that is this picture here in the corner. It was a 15-story building, and at the top of it, there was a tennis court, massive gardens, a basketball court, and there was a swimming pool in certain areas. It was basically just luxury accommodation. And that was my first time of seeing real practical application. I remember being at university in my first year and thinking, wow, I actually don't know what we're talking about because I can't see these things like visually. So I remember going to work and I said to my manager at the time, can you please show me what a beam is? And when he showed me what a beam was on site in real life, it kind of opened my eyes a bit more and actually made my degree easier when I went back to university because now I'd seen all the concepts that we were talking about. After that, I was on another project of the Glebe in Chelsea, which was essentially an old school that they had broken down to make 7 apartments and 2 villas. One of my most fantastic memories of that project actually was that one of the apartments that we were building was for Leonardo DiCaprio. So we actually met him on site, which is my biggest my biggest accomplishment from that project, that I hugged Leonardo DiCaprio pre-COVID, obviously. So yeah, but that was really good. It was long story short, it was a really good experience, and I went back to uni and kind of finished my degree. So currently, I work in concrete. So people always tend to ask me, oh, isn't concrete just grey? Isn't it just, water, sand, and, some sort of other material put together? And I say, no, actually. Number one, important, not all concrete is the same. Concrete that you would use in a building is completely different to the concrete that you would potentially use in a pavement or on the roads, or depending on what type of building you're building as well. So currently, I'm on a project called HS2, which is actually the largest infrastructure project in Europe, which is essentially a new high-speed rail line from London to Birmingham. And we are also building a viaduct, a tunnel, 5 ventilation shafts to help with maintenance of this tunnel, and just along the tunnel, just maintenance, electrical works, etc. And this is great for me because the whole thing is made of concrete. So that means that I am basically busy every day. So what does my job entail? So like I said, the concrete that you'll use in the bridge and the concrete you use in the tunnel will be completely different. So I ensure that the concrete that we're using is essentially good for what it is through materials testing. So we test to make sure the concrete will last a long time, the concrete is strong enough, and the concrete is able to kind of take the weight that it needs to take. Yeah, essentially, that the concrete will take the weight that it needs to take. And if it's good in fire, if it's good in wind. And so I collect all of that data and kind of like help with the design parameters around that. So I enjoy my role because it's not just office based. So I don't just sit at my computer on Excel. I also go into the laboratory where I do all the materials testing, and I also work on site. And the one thing I love about my job is the variety. So why engineering? I chose engineering because, sorry, I don't know why this is not working. Hold on. I chose engineering because of project variety. So I've worked on building design, I've worked in transport, I've worked in highways, I've worked in bridges, I've worked in tunnels, and I've been able to successfully do that due to transferable skills. I've also been able to travel the world with my job. There have been short stints in my jobs where I, for example, went back to Germany to work. I did a bit of work in Thailand, and I've done some work in Croatia. And the video here is of some free time that we had in Croatia, and I went ziplining. I truly agree that in engineering that no day is the same. So I said, for example, I work on site, in office, and in laboratory. My job, I've met so many people. So for example, on HS2, there's over 2,000 people working on the project, and that's just my section alone. So I speak to well over 500 people every day. I also like engineering because you can inspire many, such as events like this. I'm a STEM ambassador, so I go around to different schools, colleges, and universities, talking about my job, talking about my journey, and hoping that at least one person will be an engineer when they grow up. Also, I like seeing projects from start to finish. I've been able to tailor my career. So as I've said, I've been in a variety of projects, bridges, highways, etc. And importantly, you learn every single day. No one on the project knows absolutely everything. Every project has its challenges. So the challenge that you'll have on a bridge is not the same challenges that you'll have in transport engineering, for example. I mean, in highways or bridges, highways or buildings, for example. Hold on, sorry, next slide. Another reason why I chose engineering was because growing up, I've always wanted to do a job that was to help people. So when I was at school, I only knew of being a doctor to help people. However, doctors may save thousands of lives, but engineers save millions of lives. So for example, I wanted to solve issues to do with sustainability, such as water scarcity, population growth, urbanization, digitalization, privatization, and the lack of resourcing around the world. And I knew that engineering was one of the jobs that I could do that in. So who inspires me the most? This is going to sound extremely cliche, but my mum is the person who inspires me the most. And my mum is not an engineer. She's not just my mother, but she's also my best friend. She's the embodiment of hard work, and she's always instilled these values into me. So I said before, my mum is a nurse, and she climbed to the top of her career very quickly, actually. And she's always encouraged me to follow my dreams. And now, us both being working people, which doesn't have to drag me around anymore, and I can pay for my own holidays, we travel around the world together as a pair. So I just put up some pictures of me and my mum just kind of traveling around the world. So my advice for someone who wants a career in engineering is to do your research. So everyone is very familiar with the degree route, but there's also doing an apprenticeship. You can do a degree apprenticeship where you're kind of at university and earning at the same time, win-win. Another one I would say is to ask questions, talk to people, come to events such as events like these, grab all opportunities, but also create your own opportunities. I remember at university, one of my lecturers always said to me, if you don't ask, you don't get. And that is the mantra of my career. And that is one thing I live by every day. I'm always seeking something new and asking the right people for that opportunity in order to grow. Another is to set goals, but don't be too hard on yourself. I feel like when it comes to women in engineering, we can be a little bit hard on ourselves, but we should give ourselves time to grow, space to grow, and opportunities to rest, importantly. Another, I would say, would be to gain experiences in your field, whether that be at university, taking a placement year, doing an internship, or getting some work experience. So if you are at secondary school now, or if they're or at college, they do like, or companies do like stints where they can take people for like a week or two. If you can, get it. Also, keep your CV and cover letter updated. So even if you have a part-time job, all experiences are valid. I used to work in retail for about 4 years, and it was actually those skills I gained from working in retail that helped me get a job in engineering. Another one I would say is be bold and be brave and be unapologetically you. People will accept you for who you are if you are unapologetically you. And lastly, one that really resonates with me is that it is okay to fail, and failure could be the start of a new adventure. So for example, I failed my A-levels, but I am here today, and it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me is failing my A-levels, as strange as that sounds. So that's that one. And also lastly, people always ask me, okay, so what do I need to be an engineer? At the end of the day, if you have an interest in the world, engineering is for you. Thank you. Ooh. Stop share, I think. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you.
You can hear a bit of an echo coming back through me right now, but hopefully no one else can. But I would just like to open up the floor for any questions that anyone might have. We'll have a roundup of Q&A right at the end of the session. If anyone did have any questions for Mimi right now, feel free to post them into the chat, and then we can come to those straight away. Just give a minute for anyone to think and pass them on. I know you're all sharing a screen in the classroom today. But if not, feel free to post any questions into the chat. Oh, there we go. One has come through already. Mimi, what is the most challenging project that you've worked on so far?
Definitely HS2. So the project I'm currently on now. So that's the project that's a new high-speed rail line from London to Birmingham. So essentially, like I said, I work on the concrete used for the tunnel, the concrete used for the viaduct, and the concrete used for five different ventilation shafts. And it's because my job is still relatively new to me. I know at university I studied concrete, but it's not, at university they don't teach you everything you need to know. So it's kind of updating yourself constantly with the knowledge and being able to collaborate with over 2,000 people on site to get your job done. So I think that's where the challenges more come from. And also understanding that I'm still learning in my job and I don't know everything, and it's okay to take your time.
Thank you. And an interesting question come in here now. How do you deal with the political side of your job?
When you say the political side of my job, maybe that's way above my pay grade, but for the political side of my job, as in, is that when like, how do you say, when we have like, how do you call them again? Like people who are like protesters, etc. Is that what you're speaking of? I'm not, but I think when it comes to like the political side of my job, I don't think I'm really involved too much in that side. But in terms of like when people are coming to protest, it's very high security in my job. So there's security around, and there's measures in place in order to keep everyone on site safe. and even the protesters safe as well. But I'm sorry if I didn't answer that correctly, but I think the political side of things is way above my pay grade.
Can I explain what I meant?
Yes, please.
So basically, I'm not 100% sure, but my knowledge of the high-speed rail and stuff, especially in King's Cross and around them areas, there's a lot of like homelessness. There's a lot of people being basically put up because this thing needs to be built and there needs to be space for it to be built. Say if a project disagreed with your values or your morals, like how would you deal with that?
Yep, this part's probably my pay grade, but I know that if for example we are having to, maybe I'm gonna say it's quite bluntly, but if we're having to destroy habitats or destroy homes, there are measures in place to, for example, to order rehouse those people. We don't just take people out of their homes and give them nothing. So these from projects I previously worked on anyway, if we've had to do, like, for example, take away forests, etc., or like woodland or whatever, we've always replanted the trees, and really had like how do you say it now, like when you have like a public consultation so everybody knows what's going on, there are measures in place in order to help those people who are being put out. Yeah, we don't just leave people.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying that like you just leave people, but I just mean like if there was a project of which like just conflicted with some things that, I don't know, your values or, you know.
Oh,
like
my personal values.
Yeah, like
oh,
something that you like disagreed with, how would you deal with that?
So in most organizations, there's actually a choice on the projects that you work on. So if there was something that I severely disagreed with, I would opt to not work on that project within my organization, preferably.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Sorry about that.
There you go. Thank you. Any more questions coming in for Mimi? There will be an opportunity at the end to, oh, there we go. Sina, do you face any inequality in your job?
So being a woman, but not just being a woman, but also being a Black woman, there is a disparity within how many Black people in general are in the engineering construction industry. However, I found that when I've been on site, personally, I haven't experienced any discrimination myself. People respect me on site. People know that I'm there willing to learn and that I am good at my job. So through all of my expertise and how much effort I put into my work and how much effort I put in outside of my job, people do respect me for that. So, but that's not, doesn't mean that I'm blind to that there are people who are experiencing this, and there are inequalities in the engineering and construction industry. However, also there are loads of groups and communities that are combating this issue in the construction industry, and the engineering industry are putting in a lot of time, effort, and money to solve this issue.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, I think if it's all right with everybody, we'll move on to Alex's talk, and then we can come back for any more questions for Mimi and Alex, both at the end. So I will just do my best to unspotlight you. There we go. There we go. And Alex, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mimi. That was, I feel inspired after listening to your talk. That was amazing. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Knight. I'm a mechanical engineer, so a different type of engineer to Mimi. So at school, I did A-levels, maths, physics, and chemistry, and they weren't the subjects that I was best at by any means. I was like average, if not maybe slightly below average with those subjects. But I felt that what I wanted to do, as Mimi said as well, was do something where I felt like I could actually practically make a difference, like do a job where I could tangibly say, I've done that and this is the outcome and it's had an impact in some way. And when I spoke to people, I went to an all-girls school, so engineering was not talked about at all. My careers advisor suggested I should be a vet. I really didn't have like much idea of what I really wanted to do, but my physics teacher once said to me, engineering will open doors, And that's exactly what it's done for me. So I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to be an engineer, but I thought if I get an engineering grounding, I can go on and do whatever I want after that, because in so many industries, they recognize the skills of engineers. So a lot of my sort of people I went to university with actually haven't gone into engineering. Well, they've gone into different parts of engineering, like maybe the legal part of engineering or financial part or project management part. And it means that it genuinely opens doors to so many opportunities for you. And when I started university, so I decided, right, I'm going to do engineering because I don't really know what I want to do, and it's going to open doors for me. When I started doing mechanical engineering, because I thought that's the most general, like I wasn't particularly interested in anything like buildings or bridges or trains or cars or anything one thing. I just thought I want to get a good grounding. So I did mechanical engineering, and then I did a master's in medical engineering, because as I went through my degree, I thought I want to apply this to helping people, and medical engineering seemed to be the most obvious fit for that. And I found my engineering degree really interesting, but also really hard. But that wasn't a bad thing. It was just that I felt like I was working towards something that was meaningful, like it was worthwhile putting the effort in, because I would get a degree that really meant something at the end of it all. So I stuck with it and I got my degree. I got some work experience along the way, which was so helpful. And like Mimi said, saying yes to opportunities where you get work experience, even if it's not the ideal work experience, you think you will get something useful out of it. And so I did some work experience, which actually showed me a couple of things I didn't want to do, and made me think, yeah, like I've tried that and I don't want to do that, so I'm going to try something different. And when I graduated from my medical engineering masters, I decided that I wanted to go into medical engineering, and I worked for a small startup medical engineering firm that was doing research and development in diagnostic devices for asthma and other chronic sort of breathing problems. And that was really, really interesting. And I loved it because I got to go and do clinical trials in hospitals. I got to work in a lab doing research and development. I got to talk to like supply chain people who provide all the different bits and pieces we needed for our devices. I got to work with children who were using the devices to see how well they used them. So I learned so much on that in that job. And I did that for probably 3 and a bit years. And then I started to feel like, actually, as I engaged with different parts of engineering through that job, like the supply chain and different organizations we were working with, I thought there's so much out there in engineering that I have no clue about. And I was speaking to some different people in my network, and I thought, you know what, I want to do consultancy engineering, because that will give me such a variety of different market sectors to work in related to engineering. And then I can decide what it is I want to do when I grow up. And so I got a job at an engineering consultancy, and I thought I'll be there for a couple of years, try out a few different things, see what I like. And I ended up staying there for 11 years because I loved it so much. And I got so much opportunity to work on a variety of different projects. So I've done projects on submarines, and I've been done quite a lot in the world of defence, which actually relates to one of the questions about where are your values, you know, and how do you align projects to your values. And when I first got asked if I would go on this project to do with submarines, part of me felt like, I'm not sure if I want to do that. Like, do I agree with that? And I thought, well, I'm going to try it because I'm interested in the engineering. And as I got to know the people and know like the ethos behind it, of why it's there and why we have these, I actually thought like I'm happy to contribute to this area of engineering, to add my skills into this, to provide some use in this area, which is so fascinating from a technology perspective. And it's so interesting how you learn about one area and it's very applicable to other areas. So the technology that I learned about to do with submarines then ended up being applicable in other areas of engineering. So I could take that learning and that kind of best practice in an area that has a lot of money pumped into it, and then look to take that elsewhere as well. And in my everything opens new doors and everything opens new opportunities. So when I worked on that submarine project, I got to work in other areas of sort of defence and started working with injured soldiers who had experienced injuries when they were at the front line, and some of them really, really bad injuries. And they would go for rehabilitation, but their rehabilitation equipment was kind of like off the shelf stuff you'd find in normal hospitals and things. And it wasn't, their injuries were so complex and so sort of unique that this equipment they were using wasn't very good for them. And so they would tell me, oh, like, actually, what I really need is something like this, or this equipment, but slightly altered. And I thought, well, we can do that. We can solve that problem for you. So I took those kind of requirements back into my company and said, can we do a project to help these injured soldiers? And so we ended up doing a number of projects where we designed completely new, novel, innovative rehabilitation equipment for injured soldiers, right from concept design through to actually building the real thing and putting it in their rehab gyms and seeing them use it and seeing how much it helped them was amazing. And that kind of really connected back to my medical sort of engineering side of me as well, where I wanted to do stuff to really help people. But I wouldn't have got that opportunity if I hadn't have done the other defence project and started talking to people about what they needed. So, you know, everything feels like it's kind of connected in a way. And then other amazing projects I did whilst being a consultant. Mimi mentioned she'd been out to Thailand. So I did a project in Thailand working with the state-owned organisation for managing all the power in Thailand. So they have one central organisation that basically generates and distributes power to the whole of Thailand, which is massive. And getting power into like remote villages in Thailand is a real problem. So I was working with them to help them work out the best way of getting power more equitably around Thailand. And so although I didn't live out in Thailand, I was going out to Thailand quite frequently for a couple of years, really. And that was coincided with the time I had my first child, which did make life a little bit difficult at times. But, you know, I worked around it and used my support network to help me carry on working and doing this interesting work whilst also becoming a mum. And then other projects I've done. So I've also done projects in the rail industry. I've done projects on bridges as well. So after I left that company, that first consultancy company, I moved to another consultancy, which actually was a civil engineering firm, but I'm a mechanical engineer, but it doesn't really matter. Like skills, like Mimi said, are so transferable. And I was working with civil engineers, but also working with data scientists, software engineers, project managers, linguists, like a whole range of different people to be able to pull amazing projects together. And my best project, I think, when I was working at my latest company, Amy, was turning the Forth Road Bridge crossing in Scotland, which is a massive complex bridge, into an intelligent bridge. So we installed sensors and diagnostics and lots of different types of things to measure what was going on the bridge. And then my bit of the project was working with a team that developed the cloud computing analytics solution that would take all of that data from all the sensors over the bridge that measured things like how the bridge moved when it was really windy, how the bridge responded to weight from vehicles going over the bridge, how the bridge articulated at the joints at the edges of the ends of the bridge. We took all that data and we could then use our maths skills to basically say, this is how well the bridge is performing or how healthy the bridge is. And then that would lead into, so what do we need to do with this bridge? How do we make decisions about operating and managing this bridge better using data? And that was real-time data. And then we also did a predictive part of it where we could say, we know that the weather's going to be like this tomorrow. How do we think the bridge is going to respond? Do we need to close it for, say, really heavy or high-sided vehicles? And it would help us make decisions. So that was like, when I started that job, that was way out of my comfort zone because I didn't know anything about data and analytics really, but I worked in teams that had experts in those things. And together, you know, we worked it out and we created something real. And then other bridge engineers and bridge directors from all over the world would come and talk to us about what we'd done, because it was world leading. So I did that for a while, and then I decided last year that I actually was going to set up my own business, which is called STEMazing. And because I love STEM and I love going and talking about STEM and, you know, supporting and mentoring and empowering other women in STEM, and also inspiring kids with STEM. So I'm talking about young children. So my full-time job now is actually doing my STEM clubs, my STEM mentoring, and I've just recently launched an initiative where I'm training up women in STEM to be more confident in themselves and more confident on camera. And then they learn how to do 6 of my STEMazing kids sessions, which we then deliver in infants and primary schools, all for free because it's sponsored. So that is pretty much what I'm spending all my time doing. And I'm also a visiting professor with the Royal Academy of Engineering back at Brunel University, where I did my first degree. So some of my time I spend talking to university students and giving lectures there as well. And I'm also on the board of the Women's Engineering Society. So I volunteer for them and help loads and loads of women in engineering to meet their potential, really. Something Mimi touched on was that there aren't enough women in engineering, and sometimes it can be hard being in the minority. You don't always face discrimination, but sometimes it is there in a male-dominated field. So organisations like the Women's Engineering Society exist to provide support and really help women be the best they can be, because we need more women to become engineers, because we need more diversity in engineering. Particularly, only 12% of engineers are women, and we know that diversity breeds innovation, and the key thing for engineering is innovation. We have to be breaking down barriers, taking like steps and leaps forward in our designs, in our ideas, and how we implement and solve those problems, so we can tackle some of the world's biggest challenges we have right now, which there are many of them. So, you know, it's really important that more girls choose to go into engineering and STEM more broadly, but particularly engineering. So it's something I'm very, very passionate about. And I could go on for ages, but I feel like I've probably talked for long enough about me and what I do. So if anyone's got any questions, then I would happily take them.
Fantastic. I mean, I can see a question come in straight away, so we'll get to that in just a second. But thank you. That was another fabulous insight into your journey and your career so far. Really brilliant. So a question that has come in first: how do you keep up to date with the developments in your field?
That is a great question. So in a number of ways, I'm chartered engineer. So once you get your engineering qualifications, thanks, Mimi. Once you get your engineering qualifications and you've got a bit of experience in industry or academia, you can then become a chartered engineer. So I'm chartered with the IMechE. For example, Mimi's probably chartered or will be chartered with Civil Engineering Institute. And then you can continue on learning. So all these networks are out there to help you stay, you know, informed about what is going on in your field. And obviously, as we've mentioned many times, engineering is so broad. There is not a person in the world that can be an expert in every field of engineering and what's going on. But the main thing is to keep interested and keep an awareness of what's going on, because then you can transfer good ideas from one area, say like, I don't know, say like defense, into renewable energy, for example. So I like to keep up to date with what's going on, which I do through attending conferences and like meetings and networks and stuff. I'm reading interesting articles, and that's really made quite easy for you once you become a member of these engineering institutions, because they're always doing fantastic, like informative magazines and articles that go out. So it is quite, and obviously when you join a company, they will normally pay for you to go on training and keep developing yourself. So you never ever stop learning.
Fabulous. question coming from Janice. If you could give a young woman going into engineering some advice, what would it be? And Mimi, I'll come to you first for your input for this too.
Sorry, did you say me first or Mimi first?
Alex, if you want to go first.
Sure.
Mimi.
Yeah, I would say, I don't want to repeat what Mimi said about staying authentic to yourself, although I desperately want to say that. I'm going to say network. So I think a young woman going into engineering, joining societies like, for example, the Women's Engineering Society, is so valuable because you get to meet people who are outside of your normal bubble of work, that are maybe going through similar things to you, be that positive or negative. And it's just a fantastic way to feel really empowered and really supported by joining those societies, committees, and having and growing your network is so valuable, not only for giving you future job opportunities, but for helping to inform and inspire you by just like growing your network and meeting more people. So I'd say having the confidence in yourself to go to networking opportunities and reach out and grow your network. And again, that is something you never stop doing. Do it all the time.
Fabulous. And Mimi?
I've got two. One would be to be a sponge. So when I say being a sponge, it's like absorbing all the information that you can. So as Alex said, going to networking events, speaking to people, asking questions, just it's a constant, because in engineering, you're always learning anyway. So constantly ask questions, never be afraid to maybe appear something's maybe a stupid question. I ask stupid questions every day and I'm meant to be good at my job. So it's so important that you ask questions, because when you ask questions, it actually shows that you are interested and that you are willing to learn. And I think those are two really important things that are in engineering, having a general interest and being willing to learn. And my second one would be getting a mentor. So especially as women in engineering, there'll be situations where you feel like no one's defending you. But I feel like in meetings, for example, in meetings, my mentor is actually in my organization, sits in my team. So when we go to meetings and maybe I've said something and people aren't really agreeing, my mentor's the one who defends me. And I feel that sometimes you need that in the room. And also with mentorship, they can guide you in your career path, expose you to opportunities, and also offer some sponsorship. So sponsorship not necessarily always meaning money, but like, for example, if there's a job opportunity out there and they're looking for somebody, they can say, oh, I actually know someone. Mimi, for example, is good at X, Y, and Z. She can bring to your company and she's good at X, Y, and Z. So you need those people to really be at your back, I suppose, and having your back and really supporting you in all your endeavors.
Fantastic, thank you. Alex, what is the most challenging project that you have been involved in?
I think the most challenging project was that one out in Thailand, and it's not necessarily because the work itself, the engineering, was the most challenging work I've done. It was more just about how the whole project in every aspect pushed me outside my comfort zone every single day. So I was leading it from my company, and that was the first massive project that I'd led. It was in Thailand, so there were cultural differences that I wasn't used to, even in just working with people out there and learning culturally how to work best with people. So for example, I found out there that if I wanted to have a group meeting with people who were in the Thai company, we didn't have discussions in the room. It was almost like they were there sitting, waiting for me to say everything. And I found that really uncomfortable to begin with, getting used to the way that different people in different cultures worked. And then on top of the fact that I had a baby who I had to leave at home, and I really struggled with that. And actually one time I was out in Thailand, she had chicken pox for the first time and was in a terrible, terrible state. And when I used to phone home, I'd hear her crying in the background, and it made me feel so guilty that I wasn't there. So that was very, very challenging from a number of different angles. But then when it was complete, I remember thinking like, wow, I have done that. I have actually done that, and I've made this difference, and that company is now praising the work that we've done, that I led. And it felt amazing. And I knew after that, like, things will be hard sometimes, but I can do them. I had so much more faith in myself after doing something that pushed me that hard.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have any more questions? I definitely have one that I might sneak in if we have a little bit of time, but if anyone does have any questions, do feel free. We've reached 1:45, but if everyone's okay to stay on for a minute or so more, if anyone does have another. But my question, so this is a bit of a cheeky one to slip on in there, but Alex and Mimi, so you're both involved with TEDI-London, and I think everyone on the call is aware that we offer an engineering programme with our mission to diversify engineering and create a new type of student. What do you both think that TEDI-London is doing to create the future engineer?
I'll go first, sorry, look at me just jumping in there. I think TEDI-London has what I didn't have at university, which was, as I said before, practical application. We spend 3 years at university, and there are some people at university who don't take a placement year, and they don't actually see the maths and the physics that we are learning and how it really applies to real world. So the fact that TEDI-London is actually merging the two is so important, because as Alex said, a lot of people study engineering, but then maybe don't go on to engineering, because I know that people on my course said that, who didn't go into engineering, said that they didn't see what they were doing, or because they didn't take a placement year, they weren't sure how they could actually use what we were learning at uni. So I think that marrying the two together is really, really important, because experience really does trump absolutely everything. You can have as many degrees as you want, but if you don't have the experience, it doesn't really mean anything. So definitely experience is everything. So I really appreciate what TEDI-London's doing, and if I could go back to university again, I definitely would come to TEDI-London. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that as well. I think that is absolutely fantastic, and quite a different way. Like it's quite different to traditional approaches to university experience of engineering. So I really think that is fantastic. And another thing I would add is your TEDI-London's absolute sort of clear mission to diversify engineering, to make it really inclusive and to encourage more female engineers, so more girls and women to study engineering. I feel like that is obviously clearly one of your absolute core values and is so important, and that shows then in terms of how you deliver the course, and even in terms of like what you require students to have before they come in, is really trying to open the doors for more girls to go into engineering, which I think is amazing.
Fabulous, thank you Becky. So we've not had any more questions come in. Just want to say thank you so much to you both. We have reached time now, so there we go. Do you have LinkedIn or an email that you can be contacted on? Somebody's networking already. Excellent.
Very good.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely more than happy for people to link in with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best thing to do, please. Brilliant. You can find me, so I'm Alexandra Knight. I wonder if maybe we could send out our links to LinkedIn after this.
Yeah, and I'll be more than happy to share those and pass those on if you're, just let me know if you're both happy for that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Well, that was really inspiring. I really enjoyed listening to both of you, and what a great opportunity for everybody to get some insight into both of your careers and what you do day to day. I think that I could have sat through about another hour of both of you to hear about everything, and definitely want to hear more about Leonardo DiCaprio at some point.
Claim to fame.
Fantastic.